in the US, we have been having a lot of organizations that are trying to pull people back to work. And, and honestly, like, I'm torn, right? Because I definitely see it's so much easier for the bonding to happen when everybody's co-located and having a co-experience. But it's such a huge waste for some jobs, it's such a huge waste of time to have people actually come in.
But let me offer you a perspective, Cindy, on that, because the important thing here, there's a difference between working over the distance and hybrid working. Because working over the distance is because you're forced to. So you have to collaborate with the factory that is placed, 200 miles away. You can't move. You can't get together. Okay, that's one situation. The other situation is that we've got hybrid working. That means that people are allowed the flexibility to work from home out of convenience, out of saving time, thriving more, and so on. And that means that we need to understand which criteria are we actually using for deciding what level of flexibility are we allowing. We need to understand what is the value creation in the interaction. So if we are solving wicked problems, if we are trying to innovate, if we are starting up projects with a lot of moving parts, if we have a very intensive interdependency between the people on certain tasks, while other tasks are more focused tasks, that means that basically you rely on your own analytical capacity or your own processing. You've got a very low interdependency. Now, if I start understanding this, then we start saying, we need 2 days a week where we want everyone in the office and we want these tasks placed here. So when we've got the startup meetings, when we've got the meetings where we do innovation or difficult interdependency planning, I want people present because that creates value. Whereas on the other days, we want you to place the focus tasks, the independent tasks, because that actually ramps up the value creation on those. And when you go into that dialogue with your people, then all of a sudden that it doesn't become, I want this flexibility or that flexibility. It becomes a shared recognition.
It's what makes sense for the work.
Exactly. But I want to decide that as a leader and then say, let's put some, ground rules around that and then navigate together.
Well, and I agree with you. I agree that the type of the work that you're doing and the level of interdependence is going to determine whether or not you have to be in or not. But even for the stuff even for the workers who their job is much more decentralized or much more independent, I do think it's been a challenge. I don't think it's impossible, but I do think there's been a challenge for organizations figuring out how to make them still feel connected when, everything they're doing, they're the full shop.
Yeah.
And, there's really nothing holding them to the company. And so I think that a lot of companies have decided, well, we're going to get them to come in because we need them to bond. But I think that triggers some resentment, right? Like, I'm coming in, I don't need to be in. It's actually more of a distraction. I'm less productive.
I fully agree. And there's no simple answer to this, but there are some drivers. And that means if you want to build organizational cohesion, that means that you want to strengthen the collaboration culture. There's no doubt that cohesion is one of the drivers. And cohesion is very, very difficult to build if you only have digital relations. So one example from a company I've worked in, a large-scale engineering consultancy that works globally and helps governments and companies all over the world build infrastructure, solve social problems, and so on. They are really a dispersed organization, and many of them are very focused on the task. So some of them had a problem, seeing why should I come to office, But one of the big drivers is how do you disseminate knowledge and experience in an organization like this? And by building processes around how is you involve the newcomers, the less experienced? How is it that we work with the seniors, delegating the lower end of their tasks, which are the higher end of the development curve for the ones with less experience? How do you do that? You can't just delegate it because they don't have the skills yet to fully take the task. They need guidance and so on. So by finding that value creation in the middle, we built a shared understanding of that value creation is a shared task. And therefore, we facilitate the process of them defining the principles for knowledge transfer, for including and integrating newcomers and lifting people to the different stages of their seniority in engineering or technical capabilities. And that's created a shared sense of saying, but we've got a learning culture we want to protect. So we have these sprints, these weeks, these days, we want to be in the office. So there are pathways moving forward, but you can't do it to people. You need to do it with people because it needs to make sense. If you just say Monday to Friday, you need to be in the office, and no wonder you trigger a bit of resentment.
Oh, for sure. And I've seen it happen, and I've seen it happen with groups of people who have low interdependence. But it was a fairness issue, right? Like the reason why they did it was, oh, well, the rest of the organization has to be back. Well, that's the structure of their job. And honestly, I think some leaders have done it too because they don't have good measurement systems on productivity, and it makes them very uneasy that they can't see what people are doing for work. But if you actually have good measurement on what performance looks like for your people, then the answer is they're either doing their job or they're not.
So you're striking something that's interesting here, is in regards to the fairness. The fairness culture is one of the subcultures, and in the fairness culture we find three drivers. One of them is discussability. So are you able to discuss what is fair? Why is this not allowed for you? Why is it allowed for these people over there? And the two other drivers is distribution and procedure. So distribution, do I think that the allocation of resource, the right to work at home, is fair? Do I think that the procedure for deciding it, for arriving at who can and who cannot, and the way that people are treated in that process, those three drivers, if we don't strike that at a level where we meet the expectations, if the discussability is not there, then that weak fairness culture will undercut a lot of management decisions, because the way it's received is that it is converted to misconceptions and discussions among employees that create resentment, that create this detachment. So you're striking something that's interesting whenever we look into an organization, and that is the fairness culture.
Yeah, I think what you're saying is like the three buckets, thinking about it in terms of like which one are you not really hitting that is causing to kick off fairness issues? Because it is pretty interesting. Some organizations, it's just everything is, it's not fair, it's not fair.
Exactly. And that fairness is sometimes followed by a weak voice culture. So that means that people think it's vastly unfair, but they don't have the psychological safety. They don't raise their voice because the voice culture is not strong. And that means that we've got, this is one of the examples of an alignment where you need to go in through leadership and start establishing principles that you then start interpreting with people, saying, how do we actually raise issues like this? How do we discuss those? How do we uncover the different perspectives when we arrive at decisions? How do we explain decisions? And if we don't form principles for that, so we start interpreting it, we won't raise the understanding. And if I don't understand, I don't accept. And if I don't accept, well, it creates the opposite of cohesion, which detachment or resentment.